Now in its 16th year, Campus Safety's Director of the Year program recognizes K-12 higher ed and hospital police chiefs, security directors, emergency managers, or heads of security and public safety who demonstrate outstanding leadership skills, ingenuity, and selflessness. We name the winner for each sector at one of our campus safety conferences. The nomination materials we receive are full of impressive accomplishments and collaborations. We briefly outline these achievements on our website, but wanted to further honor the nominees and their hard work by conducting interviews where they can elaborate on some of these successes. In these interviews, finalists share some of their challenges and subsequent solutions they've implemented. We hope campuses that may be considering similar endeavors find value and guidance in these discussions.
One of this year's finalists is Marcus Lyles, Executive Director and Chief of Police for the Howard University Department of Public Safety. Howard University, which is a historically Black university, was recently victimized by 8 bomb threats that were based on racial motivations. In our discussion, Lyles shared how the threats impacted his students and staff, as well as how his team responded to the threats and offered reassurance to the campus community regarding their safety. He also shared advice for schools that may receive similar threats in the future. Here's our discussion.
Now, there were obviously a lot of great accomplishments in your submission materials for Director of the Year, but one timely and important topic that we've covered on campus safety that stood out to me was how Howard University was a victim of 8 bomb threats that were based on racial motivations. How were you, when this was happening, how were you seeing these threats impact your students and staff? And also, what were some ways your team offered reassurance that they were safe and you guys were doing everything in your power to keep them safe?
Yeah, so there's been a development, I guess, since the submission. Actually, on February 28th, I believe it was the last day of Black History Month, we received a 9th bomb threat, all within the last year or so. It was at our university radio station, WHUR. So with 9 bomb threats, of course, to any community, I believe very quickly it's meant to create fear. It's meant to create terror and to disrupt operations. Unfortunately, it's brought us closer. It really has. It's brought our community closer. Our community, our students, our faculty, they're very resilient. I've spent much time, many meetings with our administration and with our community, just to understand how we can better support. From a response standpoint, it's pretty straightforward. We've had an opportunity to go through these threats, and we call it what it is. It's terror. It's terrorism. We've been clear with that in our communications out. As I sit down with our community in various forms, we have what's called Healing at Howard. It's when we bring our students and our faculty in, along with counseling, various departments of support, just to take time to listen. Where some of the concerns are, to understand the trauma that these type of incidents can cause, to understand the fear, to work out best practices on how to get past that daily fear. The university has also put in place a few mental health days, and I think that's been extremely helpful. It just gives our students and our faculty time to sit back and rest mentally. Right? There's so much going on in our world today, from social media to threats around the corner, everywhere we see. It's often a good thing just to pause, take a pause. And we've received a lot of good feedback from that as well. My office, although we have our police service, we have our officers, but under my purview, we also have fire, life safety, emergency management, and environmental. So we have a streamlined approach in which all divisions can come together to support our community. And that's been very helpful as well. We go out into the community. We don't sit in our offices very often. If you were to see my office, you'll see boxes. It looks like I haven't unpacked from a vacation destination. It's because I'm not in here often. I think I've answered my office phone 4 or 5 times in 4 or 5 years. It's because I'm out. I'm meeting with deans. I'm meeting with professors. I'm meeting with student leaders. I'm having lunch where the students eat lunch because I don't want them to see me only in crisis. I want them to see me as part of their community and the makeup of Howard University. We have what's called, we go into resident halls. We do that, I would say weekly at this point, in which we have safety discussions. What are the police? What are we seeing? What type of crimes are we seeing? Where are we seeing them? What are best practices that the students can take to protect themselves? Because it truly is a partnership. They are our eyes, our ears, and we need them in that partnership to help support their safety. But they have to take accountability for that. And building that safety culture has been huge here. And we've seen a significant uptick with the threats coming in. I think they're more aware of their safety and how that can be threatened very quickly. And then also we've worked with Department of Education, Department of Justice on working on various grants where we can better address trauma, bringing in case managers in which we can make sure we're providing the appropriate amount of support to our community.
Yeah, and you going back to the bomb threats quickly, a bomb threat is one thing. It's obviously scary and terrible on its own, but you add racial motivations to it, and I can only imagine that the trauma is just like that much worse for a lot of your students who I'm sure have faced so many discriminatory situations in their own lives. And so then you have to open the conversation not to just how to handle the bomb threat, but also handle the context of that threat as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the threat, and I want to be careful with my words, it's not an easy thing to address, but it's pretty straightforward, right? You have a threat, you follow your procedures, your response procedures. That's pretty straightforward. But how the community feels, how they perceive safety in this environment, how they feel supported, how they work through some of the trauma that they receive from these threats that they probably dealt with since they've been kids, right? How do you deal with the parents, right? Who had these talks with their kids early on, and now they're in the thick of it, and they're facing it as they grow into being adults. So I'm fortunate. I think our team, they understand the gravity of what they do day in and day out. It's not neutralizing threats only or following protocol. It's ensuring that our students who are growing into being adults, they have a model that they can look at while they're at this university. Because when they leave here and they go out to become leaders, right? We want to be able to say that we played a significant part in their matriculation and in their growth.
Yeah, and you mentioned parents, and I know in your submission it also said one parent reached out because they were concerned for their child's well-being following these threats, and as a result, you set up a town hall for all parents and family members to join. Can you talk about this a little bit, kind of who was involved and what were some positive or helpful outcomes?
Sure. We actually have another town hall, I believe tomorrow evening at 5:30. And town halls are, in my opinion, they're very helpful. It's an opportunity for me to share with a large group kind of what we're seeing and what we're doing as a whole. How are we supporting your student on our campus, and what are the threats? I'm very transparent, and what are we doing from a technology standpoint? What are we doing from a manpower, creative, innovative ways in which we can lower crime on campus? I share different initiatives and campaigns that we have, and most importantly, I share how to communicate with us, because in any incident, communication is usually where you're successful or you fail. So we've been very focused on communicating in layers through various platforms. So where we've built the application, we have an app. It's called Bison Safe. It started with a few hundred people. Now we have over 30. I think the last count was 30,000 that are on this app. And this app has helped us in attestation when we had COVID, daily attestations where they would come in and kind of show how they feel and access. But primarily now it's a communication point of reference where we can send out command information if we have to shelter in place, if we have to evacuate. So that's one source that we've used in communicating. We've also been intentional in our social media. We're all over social media now, and we're picking up traction there because that's where our students are. Once again, we go to where they are, where they want to receive that information, and we push it out on a daily basis. And then we've also used additional technology to ensure that our communication is hitting where we need it to. It's landing where we need it.
Yeah. Now, you having gone through bomb threats and handled them how you did for schools, because we know there'll be more. For schools that may experience similar threats in the future, what are some pieces of advice you have for them that you wish you had known maybe, or that you garnered from going through it yourself?
Sure. I would say to have a strong emergency response plan. Bring in your emergency manager, bring in various departments in that planning stage, bring in a few deans, bring in a few administrators just to get various perspectives. I think that's important. Start with a draft, right? Train internally, right? Train the officers repeatedly in real time, right? Test the plan. Unfortunately, we've had too many tests, but I think I know the officers clearly understand our procedures. Review after action, right? There's always something learned from each incident. What can you do better? And then after that, update the plan. So that's just planning. From a communication standpoint, I would say train the community. Give them the buzzwords that they can expect to hear during a crisis so they know what that means. Ensure that they're training on it within the resident halls, within the academic buildings. Have one-on-ones with leaders in those academic buildings, the building managers who know the buildings better than anyone else. Walk through with them because they'll be able to share insight that from your purview you may not have thought of. Communicate in a layered approach, and I think I spoke about that earlier. Have multiple platforms and understand how your community receives information. So you may have one professor who has a flip phone, right? Like my mother, she still has the flip phone. Well, you still have to connect with her during a crisis. You may have a piece of your community that have accessibility issues. That has to be part of your plan. So just bringing everyone into thought when you're planning and you're training, and then you're always getting better. Last but not least is just building the relationships. Over the last few years here, that's been part of my strategic plan, is to build better relationships. So with the Metropolitan Police Department here in our city, with the consortium of universities, all the universities in our city, with the FBI, we have meetings with them every week now, and we're talking through various topics and threats, so we can have intel, we can have real information, from protests to bomb threats to active shooters, what was learned, getting training from them. It's been very helpful. And then also, we're very connected to our HBCU consortium, because we believe that one threat to one HBCU can very quickly turn into a threat against all HBCUs. And we meet regularly as well. So it's building relationships. You don't want to exchange business cards in crisis. And that's been our priority. We're building relationships with FEMA, HCEMA, all these organizations who will help you not only neutralize during an incident, but to recover afterward.